With the Middle East war raging and a confrontation with Russia intensifying over the shoot-down of that jet over Ukraine, some of President Obama's critics, reporters and pundits alike, are focusing on his fundraising and leisure activities and whether they send the wrong message.
Here he goes again, this time President Obama taking off for the West Coast for a three-day fundraiser-filled trip. So what about the big three crises, our border crisis, Ukraine and Israel?
This isn't politics. This is the optics of leadership. And the golf course is not the best place to be.
Look, if an airline is shot out of the sky by a missile,
right,
I think I cancel my burger joint.
Was it a mistake to have the president continue on his schedule, even going and, before making his first statement about this, go and ordering, cheeseburgers at the charcoal pit up in Delaware and continue on a campaign schedule, what looked like a campaign schedule, including fundraisers in New York? Was that a mistake in hindsight?
It was not.
K.T. McFarland, this constant criticism of President Obama, a lot of it on Fox about cheeseburgers and fundraising and golfing, as a kind of a metaphor for him not being engaged on the issues. Is that fair?
Yeah, and, look, you're almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. Every president has faced this where there's a crisis. Do I cancel my activities? Do I cancel my vacation? Maybe do I cancel my fundraising? But in this case, it reinforces that notion of a disengaged American president, that there are crises after crises. He's not making statements about them. He's leading from behind, but in fact, he's not really leading. So I think it just reinforces that sense that he's not in charge.
Listen, I'm not an apologist for the Obama administration by any means, but this is unfair. I mean, if you would have this president reacting to every crisis, which happens about every 3 or 4 days of late, he'd be in the bunker of the Situation Room nonstop and on television nonstop. He cannot be that. Listen, his foreign policy...
Is there a presumption, Fred, is there a presumption that if the president is going to fundraisers or on the golf course, that he's not working? And this came up with George W. Bush spent too much time at his Crawford Ranch, but isn't a president always working?
The fact is that he doesn't do the work anyway. He makes a few phone calls. There's staff that does the work. If you don't think he doesn't get an intelligence briefing every morning and during the day as necessary, he does. And I'm not apologizing for it. I'm just saying, hey, listen, his foreign policy is brittle and embattled at the best of times. But this is unfair to say that he ought to stop what he's doing.
Is this the triumph of optics that the media are kind of treating whether a president looks engaged as more important than almost anything else?
Actually, it is, because that is true. People want to see their president acting presidentially, right? They want to see him out there and leading and giving people information. And, yesterday he went to Congressional Country Club here in Washington and was playing golf with, pardon the interruption hosts from, ESPN, Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon. And so you keep hearing that enough and you think, where is this guy? Even though his staff is doing the work. Well, optics are important, as he knows.
I think the president is sort of almost rebelling against the chat.
He's thumbing his nose.
The chattering classes here. I think he should have gone to the border. I think that was an important photo op. But at the same time, I mean, let's be candid. If he does all of these photo ops, it doesn't mean that the problems, whether it's the border or Ukraine or the Middle East, are getting solved.
It doesn't, but that's what the media tend to play.
We have almost no interest, nothing that we can do in the Ukraine after this plane crash. We couldn't prove it came from the Russian side of the terror. We couldn't prove anything, so he had to step back. Listen, he didn't have support. What support does he have for the economic sanctions from Europe? So he's sort of he's squeezed here, So what is he supposed to do? Get in front of the camera?
But this is about
no. It's every administration I've been part of. There's only so much oxygen in the Oval Office, and if you're out playing golf, you are not drinking the oxygen. You are not in there engaged. He should have been working the phones when the Ukraine situation happened. He should be working the phones.
Okay, but
and he did. But
hold on. So now you are saying, he's not doing the things that he could or should have done as president. That's fine. That's fair criticism. Is it fair criticism? He's hardly the first president to play golf to jump on it every single time that he hits the links.
You make my point.
I'm asking KT.
Do I think it's fair to jump on the criticism?
Do you think, as somebody who's worked in several administrations, do you think we collectively are overdoing this point?
Not in the least. You've never seen crises like this, one after another, and a disengaged president. Not only because he's not physically there, but his administration isn't involved.
But part of it, too, is politics. I think the fundraising aspect of it splits the audience, right? You have the Democrats saying, okay, good, because we're going to get somewhere in the midterms. And then you have Republicans saying, hey, wait a minute, you're putting politics and raising money ahead of our world crises. What are you doing?
Yeah, and of course, every president, including this one, uses photo ops when you're talking about jobs. You go to a factory. I mean, that's part of the modern presidency. KT McFarland, Fred Francis, thanks very much for joining us this Sunday. Before we go to break, this postscript, one of the most sickening moments in the Malaysian plane tragedy took place when Colin Brazier, a reporter for Sky News, which was part of Rupert Murdoch's media empire, showed up at the crash scene.
We shouldn't really be doing this, I suppose, really.
We should have stayed with those pictures a little longer. He was going through the belongings of passengers who'd been shot out of the sky. Can you imagine anything more degrading than rummaging through their personal effects? Somebody who'd been killed in a plane crash, plane being shot down. Brazier later apologized in The Guardian, writing, certainly it was a serious error of judgment. I acknowledge that, and so did Sky. Too late, I realized I was crossing a line. I thought aloud, we shouldn't be doing this. This is a mistake. An instant apology that was only selectively quoted by those determined to see what I did is a powerful example of journalistic vulturism. You know, that's the perfect phrase here. Journalistic vulturism. At least he had the common sense to stop himself and fully apologize. Ahead, why are the media suddenly going gaga over Elizabeth Warren? But first, Fox's Leland Vittert on the challenges he faced reporting from the Middle East.